It's Aloha Wednesday, 3 days to the big day. It's breakfast with Bob.
Honcho Man! Thanks everybody for joining us. We are brought to you by HOKA, One, Polar, Halo, Neuroscience, Velofix. Today's plan, Normatec, Four Seasons Resort, Hualalai, Triathlete Magazine, and we are at beautiful Huggo's on the Rocks. Our next guest celebrating his 8th year as a president and CEO of Ironman. Please give it up for Mr. Andrew Messick.
Yeah.
So you got a little bit of a party coming up here in a few days.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a little event, and we're going to give everyone an opportunity to swim, bike, and run.
Yeah, and look at your company over the last number of years. It was Iron, 45 fulls, 120 or so, 70.3s, something in that ballpark?
We expect to be 41 fulls next year and 117 70.3s, 3 of which I'm not allowed to talk about.
There's nobody here, Andrew. We can talk about that right now. It's just me and you and a microphone.
Well, they're going to be in countries where we've never been before.
Wow.
And they're going to be races that I think are going to serve.
I'm going to fix your collar because I'm that type of guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. What's been your biggest? You came from Tour California, came from AEG. What's been your biggest surprise, or early on your biggest surprise with triathlon? Because you were an Ironman guy yourself.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest surprise, your biggest takeaway when you first got going with this?
Well, I went from being an age group athlete who was desperately trying to qualify for this race to being in charge of, among other things, this race. And I did not anticipate that when I was thinking about how my career was going to unfold.
Right.
But I was an age grouper and started as an age grouper, and so to the extent that I have any real skills and credentials. Understanding the athletes has been an area where I've put a lot of focus and trying to make sure that we're consistently able to deliver a race experience, whether that's in Australia or New Zealand or Europe or North America, that's consistent and that is at the standard we're trying to achieve. And that it's not always easy because we're an outdoor business and we deal with public roads and public waterways and so the challenges associated with being able to deliver good, safe events for your athletes, it's a complicated business. But we've put an enormous amount of effort in the last 7 years to just try to establish a standard and constantly try to elevate it in terms of creating really good, really safe races for our athletes.
How has it changed things for you? Because a couple years ago, actually a little over a year ago, you bought all the rock and roll events, the competitor group, and added 35 marathons and half marathons, something along that line?
Yeah, we now have 55 running events worldwide. We're the largest organizer of running events in the world. So, along with being the largest triathlon company and the largest mountain biking company. So,
when I hear that, because obviously we're always trying to grow the sport of triathlon and get more people to understand that, as a runner, there's a finite amount of years that you're able to just run. You've got to incorporate cross training. So you've got this big funnel of runners who could be moving in here.
Well, I think endurance athletes are always looking for the next challenge.
Right.
And what's next? When you start in triathlon, you're going to do a sprint, you're going to do an Olympic, and then you're going to set your sights on what's next. Is that a 70.3? Is that an Ironman? And after you've done Ironman for a while, the competitive ones set their sights here. And so part of what we spend a lot of time thinking about is how do we constantly help inspire people and capture their imagination to do the next thing.
Right.
And so is it being faster? Is it doing more? Is it being able to qualify for the 70.3 Worlds or the Ironman World Championships? But us thinking about the broader athlete ecosystem is an area where we spend a lot of time.
You also have gone all in on mountain biking. Cape Epic, and I know there's others as well. Yep. And do you see the crossover that eventually your runners become triathletes become mountain bikers?
I mean, there'll be some crossover, but I think what distinguishes most of the communities, whether that's cycling, triathlon, running, trail running, we're in the trail running business too. All of those sports have really passionate communities of athletes who care deeply, and there may be some overlap, but even if there isn't, I think the company that we've become is really focused on how do you deliver, how do you capture the imagination of an athlete? How do you create a race experience that people hear about and think, wow, someday I want to do that. And being able to create safe, compelling, really good athlete experiences. And so, the ability to deliver that for us is in many ways more important than, can I get mountain bikers to do their first triathlon?
Gotcha.
It's most like, do we have the ability and the knowledge and the sensitivity, the nuance to understand how is the mountain bike stage race community different from the trail running community, which is different from the triathlon community.
And how do we reach them all, even if it's not crossing over, it's let's focus on this passionate group of people who want to be in the dirt.
And one of the reasons that it's great to always come to Kona is that, this is where the tribe meets every year.
Absolutely.
And so to reinforce to myself, it's good because I don't spend as much time at races as I'd like to, but everyone else in our organization, for them to feel, how strongly and passionately our athletes defend the Ironman brand and how much they care about it. And our athletes in many ways are the ones who set the bar that we have to try to match. And because people sacrifice so much, they work so hard. Ironman becomes such a huge part of their life. We have a responsibility to deliver events that are worthy of everything they put into them. And and our athletes are super capable people, and it's a high standard.
Well, I don't think you talk rock and roll and you talk Cape Epic, but how many people are putting an M.DOT tattoo on their body? I don't think there's another endurance property that can boast something like that. What I love is the fact that you are an athlete and you do the races. What have you learned since you've been president when you go and do an Ironman or do a 70.3 that you've taken back and implemented?
Well, one of the things that's been fun about the racing that I do is I race a lot in places that aren't in the United States.
Right.
And so the first year we had a race in Vietnam, I went and I raced it, and it was 105 degrees, and I do terribly in the heat. And so in New Zealand, in Vietnam, in the Philippines, I've raced in all those places. And what I take away from going to places where there's an emerging triathlon culture is that everybody's really kind of the same.
Yes, they are.
If you go to the 70.3 Asia Pacific Championships in Cebu in the Philippines, it's a race that's 80% Filipinos, but they're just like every other age grouper. They're just Filipino age groupers. And if you go to our races in China, they're full of Chinese athletes, and they're just like
everybody else.
They've got the huge watch. They've
got a chest strap. They're doing a whole thing.
It's the whole thing. And that again we live in a challenging and often divisive time, but to be able to see how communities of people from around the world who are united by a common passion work together respectfully towards a common end it's nice. It's better than reading the front page of the newspaper, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So the legacy program, I think, came out of, people were frustrated. As we both know, we would never qualify to get here. You have way more better chance than I have.
Yeah.
But people now have a path through the legacy program, right? If you do 12 Ironmans, you have an opportunity to come race in Kona.
No, you don't have an opportunity. We guarantee you'll get a start.
You'll
get a start in your lifetime.
Yes.
It's not. There's no risk around it.
Right.
And that's an important design distinction. Is if you do it, you get it. You may have to wait a couple of years.
Right. And you may have to do a 13th or 14th.
Well, no, we've changed those rules.
Oh, have you?
And so you have to be active.
Right.
But active if you do Noosa in Australia, if you do a rock and roll race.
Oh.
You have to race.
You show that you're still putting a number on.
Right. You're still
in our family.
You're in the community.
Right.
But I think what's important about the legacy program is that there's a lot of people who are passionate about Ironman, who are passionate about triathlon, but whose genetic makeup is such they're just not going to. They're not going to
get here. Right.
You've got a race like Frankfurt, and you've got 450 people in the men's 40 to 44, and 8 are getting a slot, and none of them are going to roll.
Not one, yeah.
So there's a huge group of people who, regardless of how much they love Ironman and how committed they are, and whether they're good stewards of the sport and whether they're active in the triathlon club community, they're just not fast enough. And I think our belief is that those people deserve a shot of experiencing this.
Absolutely.
And
it's pretty cool.
It is, and I'll see all the legacy athletes later today, and we have a reception for them, and we bring Dave, and we bring Mark and Paula and everybody, and these are all guys who've been around a long time,
and they should be celebrated.
And everyone knows the people who've been racing for 20 years, and they're important to the sport, and so to give them an opportunity to be the center of attention. It's the right thing to do, and I think it's something we're proud of.
Love that. And obviously owned by Wanda, owned by a Chinese company. You've grown the sport of triathlon in China. How many events now?
We'll have 5 in 18, and 5 rock and roll races
70
in China.
70.3s?
All 70.3s.
70.3s and rock and roll. And you're seeing the numbers grow and more interest in the triathlon in China?
Very much so. And we're seeing, I think we've got 22 Chinese athletes racing here this weekend.
And a couple years ago, 0.
1 maybe.
Yeah. That's great. That's really what it's about.
So, and all those people, they come here and they race Kona and they go back, like everyone did. They tell everyone they know for the rest of their life, if you ever get a chance to race Kona, you got to do it.
You better do it. The other side is the Amazon coming on as a sponsor here. That's huge for the sport, right? Having a brand like Amazon look at the sport as something that makes sense for them.
Yep.
How did that come about, and how excited are you to have Amazon on board?
Well, look, we're really excited. They're a great partner. They help us build a platform. A lot of what we're trying to do, and what we've done in the last year or so, is how do we get our message out to a broader audience? And so our partnership with Facebook, our partnership with Amazon, all of them are really designed to try to create a broader base to be able to expose, our races and our company and our athletes to more people in a better, more efficient way. And so, we will have the most comprehensive coverage we've ever had on Saturday. We've got live events. We're competing with you, unfortunately. Our shows. I know.
What?
I know it's a challenge. Like my team was like, you can't. You're talking to Bob. He's the competition.
I've never been anybody's competition. Ask the guys I race with. I'm
not touching that one.
My job in life is to be that guy that makes everybody else feel fast, right? Because I'm the guy you pass and go, man, I am killing it.
We're the guys that make everyone else feel fast.
No. Yeah. And then the other thing is Women to Try, which has been a phenomenal initiative. Because when I look at it, and I go to a lot of races, when we go to Olympic and sprint and the pool triathlons and all that stuff I love, those races are invariably 50% women, 50% men. As we move up in the distance, at 70.3 in Ironman, it falls down.
Well, it's not lost on us that when we look at the running market in North America, rock and roll races are 65% female.
Yes, they are.
And so, there's clearly an appetite for women to participate in a broad-based way in endurance sports. And triathlon has never been close to having their fair share of women. And so one of the reasons that we put Women for Tri in place is we want to be more thoughtful, more welcoming, and find ways to encourage women to compete. And so it's been a huge success. I think in North America, we're now at 38% of our athletes are female.
That's
between
great.
Ironman and 70.3.
Wow.
It's 5 points higher than it was 4 years ago. But there still is a ton more work to be done because, for the successes we've had in North America, the United States and Canada, there's still many countries where
it's 5% maybe.
Usually a little bit more than that, but 10.
Yeah.
Our races, our races in Southern Europe are 90% men.
Yes.
And so part of what we have to do over time is we have to take the lessons that we've learned with Women for Tri and find ways to bring women in other parts of the world into our sports. And by the way, you see the exact same trends in mountain biking, that overwhelmingly male focused.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's like, why would riding a bike on dirt be inherently better for men?
I think the main deal we see is if I'm a woman training for an Olympic or a sprint,
Yeah.
I can do a lot of that training indoors, right, on the
Yeah.
a bike especially. But a lot of women aren't going to go ride for 3-4 hours. Where you and I wouldn't hesitate to grab our bike and go for a 3-hour ride on our own, where you're not going to see that.
Well,
for women.
that's true, but part of the reason is that women, for lots of societal and cultural reasons, are less likely to give themselves permission to do that.
To leave the
And
family and do that.
Between work and family, the expectations that many women have is that doing something just for themselves isn't right. And I think part of what we're trying to do is to find ways to allow women the permission to make themselves healthier and fitter and stronger, and to be a role model for their kids. And because no one, you look at the moms that are racing here, their families are incredibly proud of them.
Exactly.
And they're showing
The role model.
their role model.
Exactly.
And so we've got a lot of work to do. We made progress, but we still have a ton of work. We had 400 women for triathletes that we put in that raced in South Africa. We'll have at least that many in Nice. And so we're going to certain races, and we're having the normal World Championship slot allocations for Nice. But then at certain races, we're going to have 25 or 30 additional slots that will roll down solely for women.
That's great.
And
That's
Women
really
for
good.
Tri gets all the money, and that they use that for grant funding for triathlon clubs to find ways to bring more women into the sport.
Well, and the Ironman Foundation is
Yep.
talking about funding programs, inner city kids for
Yep.
swimming and things like that. At the end of the day, it's not so much trying to get people into Ironman today. It's understanding
Right.
that we're trying to build a lifestyle sport,
Right.
and hopefully down the line, even if they don't, at least they're people are being drown-proofed and they're learning about swim, bike, run.
I think we're confident that anything that is good for the sport is going to be good for us in the long term.
Yes.
And that if we can find ways to get people to participate in the sport over time, we're going to get our fair share. And so ultimately, it's one of the reasons we're partnering with USA Triathlon on Time to Try.
Yeah.
Is just how do we get more people into the sport of triathlon?
That's what we have more. I call it the endurance entertainment marketplace.
Yep.
We have more competition now than ever before with Tough Mudder and Spartan Race and Warrior Dash and Color Run.
Yep.
And our races, our sport can be scary. The swim can scare people, and the expense of a bike. So it's anything we can do to get that, put that welcome mat out and get new
Yep.
people in. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Congratulations on everything you're doing. And have a fun. What do you do on Saturday? You take a nap, hang out, play 18 holes.
So on Saturday, I have the same routine. I do the same thing every single year.
I guessed. Yeah.
So I'll watch probably the first 500 age groupers come out of the water.
Yep.
I then get on a moto and I ride through the front of the age group field, the back of the women's pro field, through the front, and I usually catch the lead guys about 5 miles past Kauai High.
Okay.
I then go to Hawaii. I meet Jimmy Riccatello, our head official.
Yes.
He gives me an update on what's going on in the race, and I wait for the men and the women to come by. I get on the moto, back into town. Usually get there about 20 minutes before the first cyclist. And then I usually have some media stuff that I do for a little bit, and then I'm back to the finish line for
about 14 hours.
for about 14 hours.
I love that.
Basically, I get dinner, but pretty much it's on the finish line welcoming the athletes.
Does it ever get old being at that finish line and watching people come? You've been at a million finish line now.
Yeah, never.
Never. It's because that's a life-altering experience for so many people.
This speaking as an age grouper, everybody's story is absolutely unique to them, incredibly powerful, and it's you don't ever get tired of seeing that. And if I ever do, they ought to take me out back and get rid of me because then you're in the wrong job.
How about a round of applause for Andrew Messick? Thanks everybody for coming out for day 3 of Breakfast with Bob. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's Aloha Wednesday, 3 days to the big day. Woo! Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And breakfast with Bob. Chee-hoo! Hello, everybody.
Thank you, man.